All right, so we are live. We are playing the third session of the Amber RPG, also known as Amber Diceless, which came out from Phage Press back in the early 80s. No, mid 80s. It was sometime. It was a while ago. So it's an older design that we are trying out with a little more modern sensibilities to it. It is a diceless game. It means that our characters can be presented with challenges from the GM, and they're going to have to figure out how to even their scale in certain cases to the challenges that face them or find creative solutions. This is based on Roger Zelazny's Amber Chronicles, that series of 10 books, which the 10th one ends with a cliffhanger. And we never got the resolution of that particular series. But we're playing with a kind of focus following up from the first quintet of books. And our characters are scions or children of older figures. They have a connection to that, either from Amber, as in the case of most of our characters, or Courts of Chaos, however they want to define that. We've had 2 sessions, and we're bringing in a new character here for the 3rd and 4th session. So at the beginning of this, you can see a little bit of character creation, some questioning that's going to go on. So that's what the structure of this session is going to look like. And then we're actually kind of in the middle of things. We are using the X card as our standard safety tool. The X card can be used for objectionable material that triggers phobias, material that hits on things you find offensive, things that hit against considerations of tone or behavior, those kinds of things. The X card is open for that. You can say X card. You can mark that in the chat. You can do a visual on that. If I don't see it, I hope someone else will shout out X card for me, so we can do that. And we'll go back, we'll redact, and move on past that. The other thing that we have as a standard setup for this game is at the start of the first session, we established lines and veils. Lines being things that are off the table. Veils being things that when we hit that material, we would fade to black. And right now, what we have as our standard lines and veils are, as a line, torture. Torture is not a thing that our characters do. It's not a thing we're going to see on screen. It's not a thing that works, and we don't have as an element to our play. Number 2, sexual violence is off the table as an element of story. We're not going to deal with that. And then for veils, for things we're going to fade to black if this kind of thing might happen. If villains causing harm to children or situations causing harm to children or animals will fade on that. Or sexual content, explicit sexual content will also fade to black on that. Eli, you're joining us. Is there anything else you'd like to mention to add in as a line or a veil? And feel free to also just email it to me if there's something else you want to add there, depending on your phrasing.
Yeah, why don't we throw a veil on suicide?
Okay, absolutely. Sounds good. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to have our 3 existing characters give the elevator pitch on who they are. And then we're going to figure out who you are. So I'm going to start here. Let's see, we're going to switch up our order. We're going to start with Joanna this time, I think. Joanna, give us the pitch on who your character is and what they're about.
Okay, so my character, Joanna, she is like a descendant of Eric, who was once the king of Amber, but was deposed. And she wasn't treated very well by the other people in Amber. So she fled and got power from the Courts of Chaos instead, which is kind of like the enemies of Amber, or the opposite of Amber. And now Joanna, she spends her time in the Shadow Worlds, mustering great armies and conquering whole worlds. She's number 1 in warfare, and she can shapeshift into various forms as well. But recently, well, I won't go into what's happened. You can probably give a summary later.
Yeah, and has power over the Logos, the Chaos Force, and can use that to draw on things. And has 8 points of bad stuff. Bad stuff being the spending more than you actually have. Characters are going to have 120 points to spend, but they can overspend, and that is what has happened there. Bad stuff means that in a group, all things other things are equal. Joanna is the one that the hammer is going to fall on. So that is how that works. Morgard, let's have you tell us about yourself.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Can you have good stuff if you underspend?
Yes, you can.
Ooh, okay.
And then people think that you're awesome. Usually off the thing, and if anything good happens, it would come to you.
Okay, Morgard is a scion of Flora, and Flora was my mother, and my father was exiled, and he was basically unfavored in the courts, and I remind my mother of him, so she doesn't really have much to do with me. I spent a lot of time in the library studying, doing different things. I'm not the best at anything. I'm not good at politics or anything like that. However, I have advanced mastery of the pattern. I've learned a few power words in my studies, and I have a companion, Artax, who joins me from time to time.
And is a ferociously potent wolf.
Yes.
Awesome. That brings us to Simon. Simon, please tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so Simon is the scion of Fiona, which I always find funny that Fiona and Flora are only a few letters away, but they couldn't be more different. Simon was raised away from Amber, mostly to be kept out of all of the court politics and stuff. I don't think he has much animosity towards either of his parents, but he doesn't spend a lot of time with either of them. Spends quite a bit more time with a member of the court that does favor him, Benedict, who has, without going into too much just yet, been providing a wonderful amount of help as to the situation that everyone seems to find themselves in, at least to Simon. And Simon, whereas Joanna is good at war, and Morgard is, has got the advanced mastery thing going on, Simon is first in, I believe, psyche, strength, and endurance, which basically means you really have to get creative with him because he sees through a lot of it and is able to push through a lot more. That said, he of course is not perfect, and it should be interesting to see when the flaws arise.
And you also have 6 points. You have 6 points of bad stuff. So you
Yes.
like Joanna, have indulged in that.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. So, Eli, what are you imagining for Rin? As I mentioned, I want to let you spend in Psyche, Strength, Endurance, and Warfare. The only thing is you can spend as many points as you want. You just can't spend above whoever is number one. That is the thing as you're coming in here.
Yeah, I was also thinking semi-similar to Simon, that spent a decent amount of time away from Amber, which is why they're not wearing Amber clothes. But that probably, I was looking at those fun Trump powers, because no one has any Trumps, and got to get some of those in there.
Okay.
And yeah, so I have to start mapping things out right now.
Sure. Thinking about, you could get pattern imprint and Trump artistry. You could have both of those.
We could skip the pattern and just go full Trump, go advanced Trump, and then you can just walk through the Trump cards.
Yes, but someone has to have a Trump there, or you have to have a Trump at a particular location to get there. That's the only disadvantage on that one.
Unless you make it. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of limiting it that way.
Okay. Do you think you want? So that would imply that you are a scion of Amber, a child of Amber. Is it? Do you think it would be that that you haven't walked the pattern yet, or you've opted not to walk the pattern?
I think I haven't. I was refreshing myself on the Silence of Amber. I think probably someone like Blaze makes a pretty good absent father to just completely fuck someone up.
Yeah, absolutely. A character with a lot of machinations and so on. So yeah, that is a good pick.
Yeah, a good one to be like, oh yes, you're my child. I dumped you on some Rim Shadow World and you just like have to get along without me. And then I guess at some point got my hands on a trump to get closer to Amber. And while using that, as you were saying, that we're all going to be stuck in a trap. So while using that, got trapped in a shadow trap.
Okay, I like that. We'll assume that you have met the others. We'll establish some connections here in a bit. But I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to kind of drop some numbers in, and then we'll get started. And anything you don't set, you can set on the fly as we go through here. And
See, how do you power game this? I mean, that's the advantage, right?
Right. And so I'll give 5 minutes. I'll sit here awkwardly, and then we'll look at that, and I'll give a summary of where we're at on things.
I just wanted to say I peeked over at the Characters and Places tab. It's fantastic.
Yeah, the pictures are really wonderful.
Yeah. Solid choices on all of them.
All right. So it works. I can become second in everything for only 50 points. You're muted, Paul.
You could. Is that the way you want to go?
I think I might. It seems like in the spirit of the game.
And so that'd be 50. So that would take you to 0 stuff then, right?
Yeah. I think I kind of want good stuff though, so I'll drop one of these.
I do have a question. Is there a way to accumulate less bad stuff or more good stuff during play?
Yes. I haven't done it because we're doing short run, but they have a very interesting way of handling things actually after character creation. And this is where it actually gets a little messy. You would tell the GM knows how many points you get.
Right.
And you would tell the GM, give them a wish list of what you'd like to invest in. And then the GM would spend those points. If it's something concrete that you would have, like an object or something, you would get it. But for things like the stat numbers and things, the GM might not tell you. You couldn't go over the next person, but you can close. You can't get to that number 1 rank, but you can kind of start to close that gap, and make it tighter over time, because that gap does impact things. So it was a subsystem that I was like, we're not going to run into that for this one.
But that's kept kind of secret from everyone else, right?
Yes.
From everyone except for the GM.
Yes.
Okay.
Weird.
Interesting.
I mean, it seemed like while reading the documents that was one of those games back in the day that you play it where your character sheet is between you and the GM.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The attribute auction happens, and people know that. Though apparently it was also run with secret auctions before. But then after that, anything, people don't know where people are going.
Got it. Okay. Interesting.
It is definitely that school of old. Despite it being a very open, diceless game, it has a lot of that architecture of PvP
Yeah.
that is built into it, which fits with the genre. But yeah.
Yeah. I was just wondering because I was like, could I shave off some of my bad stuff? But I'm like, well.
Absolutely. So, Eli, are you pretty happy with where you're at on those numbers?
Yeah.
Okay. So, tell us how you're picturing Rin. What is it you imagine? What kind of world was she actually raised in?
Yeah, I think that she was raised in kind of like split childhood between Amber and then the other world where her mother was, which is a near modern Earth shadow, and kind of split time. And then at one point, probably in her like mid-teens or so, Blaze just like stopped showing up because he does that. And as someone who never walked the pattern, she didn't really have a way to get back to Amber. And so then has spent a lot of time in that other shadow realm, but still has knowledge of Amber and still has like her trump deck from her time spent there and things like that.
And figure out how to make the trumps, how to learn to create those based on the ones that you were handed. Were you tutored by someone, or is this purely something that a sense that you developed yourself?
I think it was mostly self-taught, kind of like they were like one of the only artifacts that I had, and then it's like I know this thing is real. I am not crazy. These people in this world don't know what's going on, and eventually like get into it enough that kind of crack the secret of the trumps and being able to make my own and use them to their full potential.
How for time and Amber, for the other characters, how long do you think it has been since you've been there? Has it been a year? Has it been 3 years? Has it been longer than that? It's been 5 years. How long?
Sorry, how long since when?
Since you've been in Amber, since they would have last seen you.
Um, I mean, I think it all kind of depends. I because Amber is the kind of thing where you can have wonky time streams going on.
Yeah.
So I feel like that we could easily do the kind of thing where like I don't know how old everyone's characters are or where they are in plot lines, but what it was like Rin is like a younger child and then like a sulky teenager, and then like a year later you're gonna meet Rin and Rin is like 28
Okay.
and like a person now.
So for them, it has the last time you came was when you appeared to be younger than them. The sulky teenager to their slightly olderness, and the experience of the three, and you would have met them in the passing of that. Joanna probably on one of her rare times back at Amber. Of the three, which one do you think Rin would have at least some kind of admiration for or be impressed by?
I think we could go with Joanna and like the kind of being raised in Amber, knowing Amber, but not knowing the chaos and being able to like you have this connection to this cool other thing, and no one wants to tell me about Amber and the higher levels of like the pattern and stuff. But maybe you told me a little bit about chaos and the Largus.
Yeah, so certainly Joanna would have seen the dark, dangerous one amongst the group there. What has Rin done here on this Shadow Earth that she has lived in? What has mean, she has some magics that she's learned. What has she done?
For Ambrite things, pretty basic stuff. So like, kind of realizing that she's not going to go back, kind of committed herself to studies. When top of her class, London School of Economics, start a corporation, become basically the richest person in the world, kind of become the mastermind of everything, and run like this big shadow bureaucracy that goes all the way down.
When you decide to kind of, I mean, then when this becomes not enough and you decide to go out further, is it a search for adventure, for power, discovery? Is it ennui from no challenges? Is it a desire to get recognition from your parent? Is it about discovering secrets? Have you just been swept along? What is your motivation?
It's definitely a combination of those. I think there definitely is a sense that like, I don't really know what I'm doing here, and there has to be, and I know that there's other things out there, so I'm gonna find them. There is definitely a sense of like, I want to track down Blaze so I could yell in his face. That would be nice. And besides that, just like getting out, meeting other people on my level, like the power and control is fun, but at a certain point, it's just like, what can I do but sit around here on my hordes of shadow money that don't even matter?
Do you have any siblings that you know of?
Not that I know of, but I'm sure they're out there.
Okay.
Blaze is Blaze.
And what's the deal with your mother?
I think that she's quite old now.
Okay.
Probably like 70s or so, just because of like how strange time things and traveling back and forth. And I've set her up very well on that shadow world, but she's kind of made it clear that she isn't looking to go anywhere else and thinks more fondly of Blaze than I do. And I think she should, but
Simon, we've talked before about your character kind of less than others, having been, had a decent childhood. You were raised in a different shadow, a more medieval one, and so on. When Rin arrived in the Amber one of the times with Blaze, you helped her out of a jam. Something occurred while she was there, because of course Blaze would have brought this child and then not paid any attention. So what kind of thing do you think happened?
So I think that there comes a certain association and connotation with anyone associated with Blaze. One that people are a little bit slow to trust. And I think when I met Rin, I didn't immediately get the sense that this wasn't a person I shouldn't trust for whatever reason, simply because there was some distance from Blaze himself. So I think what I probably did is something as simple as trying to be friendly. Like I wasn't like, going out of my way, bending over backwards, but I wasn't like, your father's Blaze, that must mean you're awful. It was no, I was trying to be probably better than the typical Court of Amber member might be. Just like, I'm going to treat you like a decent Amberite, in the hopes that you later remember that and choose not to kill me.
Rin, what would have been your reaction to someone actually trying to be, pleasant in the midst of all the intrigues and smarminess and so on. Would you have been able to read that? Would you have seen that as genuine? How would you have reacted?
Yeah. I think I've been kind of confused a little bit internally because it's like people in Earth behave, or like in my home shadow behave like that, but not here. And so I guess there's a little bit of like, you're like me. And so like I feel like Rin would have been fairly friendly and fairly receptive to that. That like, you're like me, you know of other places besides this place where everyone stabs each other in the back constantly.
I like that. And then Morgard, not too long ago, maybe a few months ago, you overheard your siblings, Brea and Bastian, and they were speaking about Rin, who you hadn't seen in months. Here in Amber, what were they saying about Rin?
They were basically saying that they had been able to trade for, I think, 3 or 4 trumps that Ren had made. Ren is well known for having, the talent to make a certain amount, some of the best trumps that are out there. And they were trying to decide whether or not they had taken advantage of Ren, or whether or not Ren had taken advantage of them, and they couldn't quite puzzle it out. Which is their way.
Yeah, like maybe that when she was here before, she was demonstrating that talent. They had gotten them then, and maybe they were talking about seeking her out. I mean, if she's in the shadow, if she has this skill, that maybe what I mean. They suspect that's why Blaze would have hidden her away, is because she actually had this talent, and that they were talking about going and seeking her out and exploiting her skills.
Yes.
So, Rin, let me hard frame what has happened. I think that one day you would have returned to your office, and there in the middle of your desk was a trump that you had not made, that you had not seen before, and it showed a tower, and it had written on it the tower at Nosley, and you could tell when you touched it that it was a place that you could go to, and I think you would have prepared yourself at least a little bit for that journey. What would have been the main thing that you would have packed and prepared?
I mean, I think kind of generally know that, like, oh, advanced technology isn't going to work the closer I get to Amber, and like that kind of stuff because I spent time there. But that there's definitely like a montage of Rin sitting in the office and you can see the sun in the window, just like holding the card, thinking like, I've been thinking about getting out of here. Do I actually want to do it? Do I want to do it this way? And then deciding to go. And
Okay.
I think the main thing is just like prepping her deck and making sure that she has it all.
And you would have gotten yourself set, put your affairs in order, gotten your trumps together, and then you would have reached out and felt that coldness to the card, and then that transition, and you would have stepped forward into this place, and you could see that tower in the distance, but almost immediately you would have felt that there was something wrong, and within moments you felt yourself falling, and being wrapped in something, like the shadow itself had become threads that spun around you and dragged you down. And we'll come back to you in just a moment. So our previous trio had been trying to find out the source of these orca killer whale men that had been hunting them and traveling through shadow, and that had these makeshift trumps of them and some of their siblings, as well as Rin. I said, insert Eli's character here is what I said in the previous sessions. And they tried to track some of them. They weren't able to contact Brea. They weren't able to contact Tobias or Sybil. Those were the three that were attempts that were made. But they were with Catherine. There was a kind of a splitting of the group. We had Simon go to take Catherine back to Amber, where he found out that in fact Catherine may have been behind some of the issues, that she was involved, that she had been caught by somebody and been forced to give descriptions to this person, and that person was probably the person who made these trumps, and that this was all kind of a trap, and that she had kind of directed the other two, Joanna and Morgard, to this tower at Nosley, because that's where she said she had encountered Brea, or Bray, and at that point that Simon realized that probably that was going to be bad, and he spoke with Benedict and took off for there. Morgard and Joanna arrived there, and almost immediately felt the world begin to collapse. Morgard saw it, whereas Joanna did not, and Morgard broke his arm, saving Joanna, though to Joanna's perspective, he just broke his arm for no good reason. They then checked around at Nosley. They moved through a couple of shadows. Were kind of following up on some things when Simon arrived, and they tried to contact at least another person through the trumps, and were unable to. And it's at that point that they heard the sounds of a larger group of these orca chaos agents rushing through town. They moved and found a section of the world that was kind of woven like a tapestry, and they figured out a way to kind of get through, I believe, using a combination of the Logris and some of the pattern magic to open that up. However, when they did so, they were dragged in, and that's where we had left off last time. I know I'm missing a few key details. Is there anything big that I've left off the table? In fact, I know exactly what I've left off, but I'll see if there's anything here you want to mention.
So it's not a huge detail, but one of the small things regarding the conversation between Simon and Catherine is that at the end of it, she begged him not to tell the others.
Yes.
Because he's the only one of the three who trusted her even remotely before she revealed the truth. And he is currently still holding on to that secret for the time being. We'll see how long that holds. He's able to keep the best poker face out of any of them, but that doesn't mean he's got, a totally healthy conscience about it.
Anything else, Steve and Will, that I missed that was key?
I'll just add that before she was attacked by these monsters at the start, Joanna got a warning apparently from her father, Eric, which is pretty weird because Eric's dead, and she has not shared that with anyone else yet.
So when we take up the start of this, the three of you have been pulled in to this woven section of shadow. It is a thing that Benedict spoke to Simon about. the fact that there were these strange areas where someone had kind of destroyed shadows, had taken them and rewoven them, and that they were an unknown danger to Amber. And we will see the three of you there, and you will find yourselves in a cavern. It is crystalline, that kind of geode and quartz. The light seems to shine from behind things there, and you will see that there are bags hanging from the ceiling, like fine mesh bags, like almost like silver samite thread. There are maybe a half dozen of them that look empty, like they don't have people in them, just to make it clear that that's how big they are. But there are three of them that seem filled. It looks like the cavern continues out from here, but it is quiet where you're at. It doesn't look like any of those orca followed the three of you in. Morgard, you were sort of the first one kind of pulled through. I mean, you still got your arm in the sling, right? You will instinctively kind of reach out, and you can tell that you kind of have that pocket with Artak's still with you. That hasn't been torn away in the transition or anything. You're muted.
Am I muted now?
No, you're not.
Okay, good. So when we're pulled through, and are we landed? Is it a rough landing? Or do we?
I'm thinking so. I think for you it's okay. It's probably a much harder landing for Joanna and Simon. Whereas you kind of hit onto the dust and dirt, they're the ones who smash against the stone and gemwork here.
How about if actually one of them cushions my fall?
Okay, that seems good.
So I think I come up a little bit, and I immediately reach out, where that fabric wall was, trying to search back where we kind of came through, looking for where that slice was that we put into this fabric.
It is no longer there.
There is no fabric at all.
No.
And I think that's what you see for a little while is I'm looking around looking for the fabric, and then I stop for a second and I look at these fabric bags. And how far up are they?
They are. Imagine that the ceiling is probably 20 feet high. Mm-hmm. These bags are 6 feet long, and they're suspended a couple of feet off the ground. So there's quite a long cable up to the top.
Okay, so I think I go over to one of the empty bags and I start inspecting the fabric just to see if there's any connection between it and the shadow fabric we'd seen previously. And I think I go from bag to bag. So that's what's kind of happening. Investigation, as everyone else kind of recovers and looks around.
Let me give you a detail, and then I want to come to Joanna and Simon. When you kind of reach out and touch the bag, there is a static and a feeling you get when you touch it that you kind of draw back from. A feeling of barrier and negation like you've never quite felt. Like the bag is not like it contains and protects, but it blocks outside influence.
Okay.
So Simon, you have the least amount of bad stuff of the two of you. So you're the first one kind of up to your feet, kind of shake it off. That landing was not good.
Yeah. I think if it weren't for like the fact that I've got some pretty dang good strength and endurance, I would not have gotten up that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I would have laid on the ground an extra minute and gone, ow. But I think, I kind of instinctively end up following suit, I think, with Morgard a bit, where I kind of like get up, brush myself off, kind of instinctively reach back to try and just feel, to see if I can feel like wherever like the hole originally was that pulled us in, and then notice it. And then I think as I'm kind of doing that, my eye catches the 3 bags that are filled. And I think my eyes widen. Are the bags large enough that they could probably hold something person-sized?
Absolutely. They are definitely body bag sized.
Great. I'm going to immediately go to the closest one and see about trying to open it.
Okay.
So I think whenever Simon does that, Morgard, has felt that sharp static thing. And I see this image of Simon reaching out, and Morgard grabs his hand and says, "Careful. There's a barrier here that's unlike anything I've ever felt. It blocks both ways, and you should be careful and cautious."
And I think Simon jolts at that and like looks over at Morgard and nods silently, and then looks back and goes, 3 bags. And we tried to contact 3 people with no success. I don't think it's coincidence.
Joanna, that landing was unkind, in part because you were kind of not positioned to take a tumble, but to fight those orca. So you were facing that way for that stance. So when you got grabbed and flung here, you came crashing down. You know that you have bruises that are going to be there for a while. You see Morgard and Simon have moved over to one of the bags, and they're speaking. They seem to be involved in some kind of conversation about some issue there. You look around. The chamber is quiet. Other than this, it is roughly hewn. It is more like an inside of a geode that has kind of been cleared in places than anything else. What would you do?
While they're looking at the bags, I'm more concerned about getting out of here. So I'm going to start pacing around the edges of the cavern and going up to these like kind of crystalline walls and just like turn one of my fingertips into like a really sharp point with my shape shifting and run my finger along it, see how hard the crystal is.
It is the hardness of quartz, which means it can be broken by you exerting force on it. As you move around, you will find that there is this gap that goes out like a passageway out. It is not particularly wide. You suspect that to move through it, you will have to kind of turn sideways a bit.
Is that the only way out of this area?
It appears to be the only way out of this area.
All right. Once I've sort of stalked the perimeter, I'll come back to the other 2 in the bags.
Okay. Morgard, you felt this barrier. You've stopped Simon from affecting this. What do you want to do?
I only warned Simon I'm not going to prevent him from doing anything.
Okay.
As if I could. But yeah.
Okay. So should we see what Simon's doing, and then we'll come back to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Simon.
Yeah. So, I take heed of the warning only in the sense that I reach out a little more slowly than I was intending, just to kind of gently kind of interact with whatever this material is.
Absolutely. And yeah, you'll feel that tingle. It is a finely, tightly woven mesh fabric. And as you touch it, you get that weird feeling, that kind of numbness, but you can kind of feel the shape, and it definitely feels like there is someone in there.
Okay. Well. Okay, so I feel like I'm saying the obvious, but
Yeah.
the bodies are most likely those of our siblings that we haven't been able to contact. And if that's the case, this material is probably what prevented us from even seeing them. I'm not sure how to get past that. All I know is it would be a very bad idea to leave here without taking these with us somehow.
I'm gonna walk up to the other two, and when I see what sorry, the what's his name, Simon. When I see what Simon's doing, I'm just gonna be like, oh, you're trying to get these bags open, are you? Let me try, and I'm just gonna grab the bag and try and rip it open.
You will reach your hand up to it, and as you kind of put your hands into it and pull on it, it hurts, and you will have to dig in. Do you shape change to push yourself here?
Yeah, you can see my arms become like more muscly and veined, and the veins popping out on my forehead as well. I'm like, argh!
And it exhausts you, like it drains you, but then it gives, and finally there is a tearing, and you'll rip that, and you will quickly see a body falling to the floor, and you kind of step back, but you're exhausted, like you can barely kind of blink it away here. Simon,
I am definitely going to try and catch the body.
And you will catch this man, and Morgard, you will recognize it as your elder sibling Bastian, and he is not moving. Like, you catch the body, and you can feel the coldness of the skin there when you catch the body, Simon.
So with Bastian in my hands, I just take one look at Morgar and goes, he needs medical attention. And then look at the other two bags and going, and I'll assume that the other two do as well.
So I step forward as soon as he says he needs medical attention. I will feel for a pulse. I feel cold. Is that right? He's dead. I think, regardless of that, I think I use power word life force.
Okay.
On a dead person, that doesn't work.
Right.
So, there's no
what
jolt there.
What does that look like?
I think it's one of those things that, on the TV show, you see it. It sounds like this really loud word, and everything kind of reacts to that. However, what you actually hear is like a soft, indistinct murmur that you can't really make out what it was.
Okay.
And then there's this jolt, almost like you would see with the paddles, right? And just nothing. Poof.
It spasms, but it does not react.
And I think I'm silent for a moment before kind of going, I'm sorry, in the moment that I didn't realize that he... And then I just fall silent again because I realize I'm at a loss for words. I fully thought that, like, he wasn't dead. I just assumed, like, he was close to death.
And I think that as Simon is saying this, I think Morgard slowly looks back up at the two bags that are left and says, we have to get to them immediately, and walks over and tries to pull on one of them, tries to open one, and broken arm and ineffectual, but
it is beyond your ability to do.
And I will place a hand on Morgard's shoulder, gently move him to the side, and then just kind of crack my knuckles and follow Joanna's suit and pull as hard as I can.
And you have a very good endurance, strong endurance, and great strength. It's still even a trial for you. Like you won't like have the wind knocked out of you like it does for Joanna, but it does tax you. And you will rend one of these open. And one of the things you get because you have that psyche rank 1 is there's that moment when there's no impression of a person, and then suddenly there's an impression of a person. And you will see Rin there, much older than the last time you saw her, and she will kind of tumble out of that bag into your arms.
I think as soon as there's a hole, Morgard reaches through and does the life force thing to whoever is inside, trying to prevent the death as birth occurs kind of thing.
Okay. Rin, there is that you were unconscious in a suspended state, and then suddenly there is this jolt, like you've been, slammed down as much caffeine as humanly possible without having your heart burst, and you will come to, and you will see that the room kind of shifts. You can see the crystalline structure, and you will see Morgard and Simon, and behind them Joanna, but her arms huge and muscled and looking very strange.
Yeah, and Rin comes to, and that like all of a sudden, like you see in the movies, just the like, and, like eyes fly open, like spin around. Like, hey, I know you.
Oh, thank God she's not dead.
There's one more to save. Rin, you were trapped in one of these cocoons. Come help Simon. I'm wounded. We need to open this last bag. Hurry.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think like Simon is just in life-saving mode of just like, I will try and figure out why Rin suddenly looks older since the last time I saw her thing, and I will just kind of quickly go over and like also kind of muttering under my breath, please not Tobias, please not Tobias, please not Tobias.
And you will go to rend this third one. Joanna, do you help to kind of share the burden for this?
Yep, I'll put whatever strength I have left into it.
Between the two of you, it still taxes both of you, but you're able to do it, and you will see this female form as come tumbling out as you tear it open, and you will see Catherine.
And the same process, immediately as soon as they try and, put the paddles to them as soon as it's possible.
Okay, yeah. You reach out, and her eyes will come open. And she kind of coughs, and she looks at you at all as she kind of in your arms. Simon, she kind of pulls away. Simon looks around like deeply suspicious of what's going on here.
And I think whenever Morgard connects who it is, he kind of falls down on his ass and sits there for a second, just kind of stunned.
This woman, she has white hair, fairly tall. You probably saw her at a distance, Rin, when you were at Amber. She was sort of one of those kind of queen bee young Amberites, and she she definitely gives you the eye, like she clearly doesn't recognize who you are. She will look at Joanna and she will say, well, that's a new look for you.
What in the name of chaos is she doing here? I thought you left her in amber.
Catherine, what's the last thing you remember? And as I say that, I am making as much, like, I am staring at her and trying with every bit of my psyche to just like figure out if this is real.
She looks and she goes, what is going on?
Morgard kind of shakes his head a little bit, steps up, and says another word, and it's that reverberating, loud, echoing murmur thing, and tries to resume true form to see if this is a shapeshifter.
And steps up. She kind of goes to step back, but you do that, and no, that's her true form.
And he turns to Simon and says, "Shit."
Couldn't have said it better. Oh my God.
So I take it this isn't the tower anymore.
Did you... Yes, friend. Simon, did you take Catherine to Amber? The
Yes.
the other Catherine?
Ah.
And left her there? So Morgard takes Rin aside and basically fills her in on, what's been happening, and then asks, where, how did you get here and all that kind of stuff to bring you up to speed.
Yeah, and that they relate that, like, someone came to my shadow and dropped a card on my desk. So there's some kind of connection there.
See Catherine do that assessment of the situation. She knows Morgard doesn't like her. She knows Joanna doesn't like her. She steps in close to you, Simon.
Like Catherine.
What is going on, Simon? Puts her hand on your shoulder. I don't remember much.
What's the last thing you remember?
And she very convincingly lies to you as she says, I was simply traveling through shadow, returning to a shadow realm that my father Cain had made, and then I was here.
And I think Simon considers this for a moment, remembers what felt like an hour ago, and says, and what happened after that? And kind of gives her this look of like, I know there's more. And then as quietly as possible under his breath goes, information is not a secret right now. It is our only way out.
We'll come back to that as you see her hesitate. She has much that same look on her face as the other Catherine when you confronted her.
Okay, right, go.
Joanna, what are you doing? You see Morgard is speaking with Rin. Simon is talking with Catherine. What kind of got your breath back? Kind of pull that together. What do you want to do?
I'm going to go over to Rin and Morgard and see how Rin is. I'll say, Rin, it's been a long time since I saw you. You seem a lot older.
Yes, I'm not really sure how that happened, but I guess it's to be expected. It's not exactly the kind of entrance that I had planned to make, pop back to the old farmstead, see the family, end up trapped in a body bag, having to be rescued by people that I haven't even seen in years. It's just lovely.
What have you been doing in the intervening years?
Oh, bit of this, bit of that. Run a business, keep things together. They just some of these, and they do like a card flourish trick, like some sleight of hand magic, shuffling that looks fancy. Some of
Beautiful
these,
set of trumps.
thank you. It'll be the only thing Blaze ever left me.
Yeah, these trumps are very good. Do you think we can use these to get out of here?
Might be able to, although I don't have a whole lot of locations. It's mostly people. But maybe we can do something with that.
Look, it looks like we've been tricked by a shapeshifter. I should have known. I'm can change shape myself, and I've heard that there are some people who are so skilled in that art that they can assume, the faces of others. But damn it! All right, we need to get out of here. I'm going to try and get us out of here with chaos. So I'm gonna open my third eye and I'm gonna extend the Logris to. I'm just gonna reach for the tower where we were before, and see if I can grab onto that with a tentacle.
And you will extend out the Logris. You will reach out and it will head out, and then it will just stop. It just can't go any further. It has not reached the tower. And it will kind of wrap back, and it changes direction, and it reaches a tower.
What kind of tower?
You'd have to pull yourself to it. Or do you have the thing? You have the Logris Mastery. I think that can extend your senses with that, right?
I think you can view things with Logris.
Let me see here. So you can see through the tendrils. The tendril has reached out, we see that blackness extend from you, goes out that way through the break that is in the crystalline room. Like, very clearly it has to go out that way. It can't go through. And it will reach out, and you can see that it has reached a tower, and you see it, and it looks like the tower at Nosley, but it's different. You can tell it's from an adjacent shadow. But you will also see that there are 6 other towers. And you think something is wrong because when you're seeing through it, the perspective is wrong. But you will realize that rather than the earth here being flat, it is a cylinder. And you can see that there are towers, like 7 of them spread around, and different settlements. And you can see campfires and peoples, and this place is packed like someone has taken 7 shadows and sewn them together.
When you say campfires, like there's an army?
Like there are lots and lots of people here some armies and things like that. Does that seem like fair info? Morgard, what are you doing?
So I think other than talking to Rin, and then I see Joanna reach out with a tentacle. And I think, again, I start quietly taking notes and checking, how does this feel and all of this, because chaos is very alien to me. And I realize, I think I go back, and these bags are torn, but they're also connected to the ceiling.
Yeah, there are cables that connect them to the ceiling.
Can they be pulled out?
Yeah, I think you could. You probably would have to have one of the others do it, but they could probably wrench it free from its moorings up there.
And I think I take one of these rent bags, and I put Bastion, inside of one of them, kind of, almost as if, oh, what's the right word? Almost in reverence or in burial or something like that. He is my brother, even if we didn't get along.
Mm-hmm.
And get that prepared, because we're going to take the body with us, not just leave it here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ooh, I think now's the time I open my shadow pocket.
Okay.
And pull out Artax, and I'll put the body inside the shadow pocket. Okay, so they can kind of swap places.
I think that's a reasonable thing to do. Yeah, that seems like it would make sense given what your abilities are. Yeah, there'd be that. And Artax is there. Again, for everybody's benefit, describe what they see when Artax arrives.
So basically what this looks like is almost like a rip in the reality of what's here, and this is just the opening to the shadow pocket. And Artax kind of leaps out and looks a little regal, large wolf, and paces around, sniffs the air, and then, waits.
Rin, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think Rin is also interested by Joanna and their chaos manipulation, but they kind of like step up. Well, if we can get out, why aren't we going?
There's something blocking me. It blocks the pattern as well. It's like a trap. It's like someone's woven a bunch of different shadows together to make a trap.
And they all lead back here.
Yes. I have a feeling it's not going to work, but I think you should try to use one of your trumps. Maybe do you have a trump for Benedict?
Should have one here for that. I'll flip through. I think Blaze, with his ironic sense of humor, would have included one of those.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that you will draw out that card, and it you have the sense that it kind of activate it, but it doesn't get that coldness that you get when you start to reach someone. Like, it is clearly being blocked by wherever you are. And you touch and concentrate, and this is very unusual for you. But then you kind of have to break it off. Just the pressure of that will wear at you, and it will not contact him.
Huh. It seems similar things with the cards. I like whack them against my hand, shove them back in my pocket. Same thing. I'm not sure if any of you seen this before.
Don't know anything like it.
Well, there's a little bit like it. You did have that kind of blocked contact when you tried to use these rough trumps that you found on the Orca. I believe you guys have 2 sets of those, right?
But Catherine isn't in either of them.
That is correct.
So And I say that out loud to Joanna and Rin while Simon's dealing with Catherine. And I say, Catherine isn't in either of them. And we've seen 2 Catherines. So she is definitely not to be trusted.
Do you show Rin the cards?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Rin, they hold forth a set of trumps, not drawn by your hand, not drawn by the artists of the trumps that were gifted to you, but they're rougher, more workmanlike, almost sketched from description. And you can see that there's a trump of Simon, there's a trump of Joanna, there's a trump of you, there's a trump of Morgard, there is a trump of Brea, Bastian, Tobias, and Sybil. There are 8 cards amongst the number there.
So I wonder what I can learn, like as someone who's spent a lot of time studying trumps and making them, that I wonder what I can learn about the person who made them, almost like someone who does like handwriting analysis, so like art analysis of like someone had to create these, and in creating them, they couldn't help but reflect some of who they are in their art.
Yeah, I think that with your advanced trump artistry, you can definitely tell that these are taken from descriptions. Like the picture of you is a teenage you. It's not an older you. They are made from someone else's telling the artist, which is a striking. They must be as good as you to be able to do that kind of thing. But definitely have the sense that where the trumps that you have from Amber have a kind of a balance and a symmetry, and that there is a logic, an artistic logic, a golden mean, all of that kind of sensibility. Even you instinctively do that when you draw your trumps. These are wild. The pictures are not framed quite correctly. The positioning is off. It all speaks to you of someone who is not in their right mind. It may be an evidence of chaos, or it may be evidence of someone who is unbalanced in their faculties. Does that seem like a fair answer?
Yeah, it's definitely. I think they'll kind of like muse about these things and flipping through them.
Simon. Joanna tells you a tale that you've heard before.
Do you mean Catherine?
That's right, Catherine, not Joanna. Sorry.
Okay.
Too many names. Catherine tells you she was traveling further out, and she came across someone, an elder of Amber, and she thought they were one person, and they aided her. She thought that she could gain much by learning from them, but it was only over time that she realized that they were not who they said they were, and that by that point she had already told them of the generation of young Amberites. And that when she had done that and she realized to the error of her ways, that is the last thing that she remembers.
Okay.
She says, I am sorry.
This isn't on you. if anything, the only thing I can fault is that the only reason I didn't see through the story from the other you the first time is because the story is true. It's just not their story. It was told from a different perspective.
And your forgiveness is actually the most painful thing for her, because you can tell that the reason that she spoke with this person was pure naked ambition, that she thought this person that she talked to was someone important in Amber that she could get something from and could gain a position, and that all backfired for her.
And I think I pause and kind of think about it, and I go, that does make me wonder, though. You were the one to give the descriptions?
Yes.
And without breaking eye contact, I call over to the others and say, does someone have a deck I could borrow of those roughly drawn cards?
Rin like tosses one over to you.
Cool. Because I overheard enough to know that the actual trump for Benedict didn't work. Just for the hell of it, which one would you say you threw over to me?
Oh, I have all the names in front.
Brea, Bastian, Tobias, Sybil, and then Joanna, yourself.
4 of us.
Okay.
I prefer it be someone who isn't amongst our ranks.
Yeah, is there anyone in that list who isn't among us?
I think
Brea,
Tobias,
Bastian, Tobias, and Sybil.
right, yeah. Well, hypothetically, Bastian is amongst our ranks. Just.
Yes. I'll toss over. I'll toss over Bray.
Okay. Cool. I'm going to try and focus and use the trump of Brea here.
Okay. And I think you will reach out and you will feel that frosty cold of that contact. And I think you will see blood and fire and battle. And you will hear in your head, little busy right now. And we're going to take our 5-minute break right there. All right. So the rest of you will see, because when you make Trump contact, when you get that, you will see kind of almost an overlay image, and you will see Bray, this woman in that kind of fighting cloak. She is in the middle of a battlefield. You will see there are armored figures, kind of lacquered wooden armor, bits of metal on them. They have odd blades that are straight, but you can see that a number of them have firearms connected to them. And the thing that will strike you is there are two forces that are fighting, and they look very similar. Like it is difficult just at a glance we've seen behind her to tell what the difference is between these two sides, just at this glance. What do you do, Simon?
I think I smile the briefest of smiles because this confirms a theory, and then I just go, I understand it could be a little bit of a bad time. I know a few people who could certainly help right now.
And she will swing. She's no Joanna, but she is an able swords person. And she will swing, and she will take a moment, and she tries to keep her attention on her guard, even as she reaches out for your hand to pull you through. And you three will see Simon begin to do that transition where he starts to fade out, like he is going to make that jump through the trump. As you're getting pulled through, you'll see her take a blow that will knock her down to the side in the midst of this mud and fire. What do you do? Let's see. Let's start with Rin, because Rin, you're sort of the next closest because you just handed Simon that trump. What do you do?
Yeah, and Rin's gonna, as Simon starts like going through, is like, oh no, you're not leaving us here. And I think that I'm gonna like try to stabilize that so that like the rest of us could go through as well.
So what do you think that looks like? I mean, you have advanced trump artistry. This is something you know. What is it that we see? How do you keep that passage open?
Yeah, I think that it's more like feeling and finding the edges of it, like with my hands, and then like painting it in strokes across the edge to like painting it in my mind's eye so that like you can't really see it, but my hands are moving, and that kind of creates the portal, or like solidifies it to the point where you could actually use it instead of just like rudely yanking someone through. So
That is awesome. That is awesome. So we'll see your hands gesture. Joanna, you see that. You see Simon go through. You see that battlefield, and then you see Rin. You've never seen this before. Somehow stabilize that trump gate there. It does look like it is trying. It is definitely taxing for her, and like she might not be able to hold it open that long. What do you do, Joanna?
I'm gonna look at Rin and Morgard and Artax, I guess, and say, all right, they've brought us here. If they want to fight, then let's fight. And I'm ready to rush through the portal and get to killing.
Okay.
Not really sure which side I'm going to be on, but whoever are the bad guys, I'm going to kill them.
Okay. So we see you move through that gate in the midst of battlefield.
Oh, but as I go through, I also want to grab Catherine by the arm.
Okay.
And you're coming too.
Okay. And you've got she's actually going to try and resist that. I think she is a little bit stronger than you are. what do you do, Morgard? You see that that Joanna stops, grabs onto Catherine, starts to pull her through, but is clearly not having any of that. What do you do?
Oh, I think Morgard is a little bit shocked by all this going on, doesn't really know the Trump as well as Ren does, and sees Simon fade away and is like, no. And Joanna goes to jump through, and Morgard looks at Artax and says, and just kind of almost like what to do. And Artax says, power in numbers, and Artax jumps through the portal, and Morgard kind of looks back, and I think he pushes Joanna through the portal to give a little bit of an extra shove, and then follows her.
Okay. What are you doing? Are you more interested in getting Joanna through, or are you going to try to get Catherine in through too?
I think, obviously, it's everybody needs to go through. We don't need to be stuck here.
Okay.
Ren can step through, so I'll grab both and push through.
You have amber level strength. You are not strong. What are you doing to even that scale to allow you to get Catherine to go through?
Well, I figure Catherine's a little bit off balance as it is,
Okay.
because Joanna's pulling on her and she's pulling back,
Mm-hmm.
and I push them sideways. They're kind of pulling against each other, so I push them sideways and then towards the portal.
All right. So you go to do that, but again, it requires your strength, and you try to do that, and
Catherine doesn't budge.
Catherine doesn't budge. She's stronger than the two of you right now.
Oh, that's easy. I tell Catherine, I think as she resists the two of us,
mm-hmm.
I say, maybe you deserve to be left behind.
Oh. Let me come back to you two and Ren, the moving through. Simon, two forces fighting, a very similar armor colors. You can see this is now. It is incredibly disconcerting because you will look and there is light, but this is definitely a cylinder that you are in of multiple different things kind of bound together. And you see that Bray has taken a blow and has kind of fallen, and there are these they're human figures of gun blades, and they clearly know the two sides. What do you do?
First, I'm going to reach for Bray and make sure that she's okay.
Okay. So
I think I actually kind of follow it, at least as far as my eyesight could tell, whatever Morgard did when I handed him Bastion.
Okay. So what is it that you do to get Bray to safety or protection?
I think the first thing I do is if she's down, I try and cover her with my body so that any enemies would have to go through my backside.
Okay.
And then I think with my strength as it is, I just pick her up and I think move a few feet away to sort of I think from my perspective, there's probably just the smallest hill and then a little thing under that. Kind of it falls and then caves in a bit, and I just kind of leap down and then just kind of duck and try and just be out of sight, and hope that no one saw me take Bray and hide.
Okay. The sense you certainly get, and it can do that, is that the fighting is generalized rather than them pursuing her or targeting her in particular. It's that she's gotten caught up in whatever this conflict is.
Okay.
So yeah, you'll be able to protect her. Rin, you see this kind of tug of war going on, and you see Morgard say this to Catherine. What do you do?
Okay, so we've got Catherine who just came through the portal, or was just forced through the portal.
She hasn't gone yet. They haven't quite gotten her through.
I think I'll kind of like look her in the eyes and just say, "It's your choice, but I'm not sure what would happen to you if you were standing where you are now and I was to stop holding this in place."
And I think that there's that moment of holding, and then she moves, she pushes forward, she exerts her strength to move and get kind of free of Joanna and Mortgard's hands, so that when she goes through, she can draw a weapon and defend herself. And she lands. She's like the rest of you, a skilled fighter, not as skilled as anybody except for Morgard. She's better than Morgard. But she goes into a full defensive stance. Joanna, what do you do now that you've kind of gotten her through? Do you step through?
Yeah, I'm going to go straight through, and the first thing I want to do is, did I see what's her name, Brea? I saw her through the portal.
Yeah, you saw her through the portal, and then you would have seen Simon after she's injured, move her to a position of protection.
Okay, so I want to, I guess, kind of get everyone to regroup and then try and ask Brea what's going on. Like, I guess Joanna's idea is like there's two armies fighting and one of them must be our side. So I'm going to try and like get the lay of the tactical situation so that I can contribute to the battle.
Okay, so how is it that you regroup or establish a perimeter? What do we see on screen you do to get everyone together in a position that you can catch your breath and ask questions?
I think that I look over, and a few feet away there's this kind of war tent that has been half knocked down, but there's still a bit of space inside it. So I'm going to say, everybody get in here for a minute and get Simon to drag Brea over if she can't walk, and just have everyone huddle up in the tent where we'll be hidden from enemies.
Okay. Essentially a space that has a little bit of breathing room. You will head into there. Morgard, Rin, do you follow?
Yeah, Rin will just be like, I guess this is what I'm doing now. I hadn't really planned on it, but...
Rin, do you have any weapon with you? What would you have brought? You would have had whatever sort of gear or things you would have brought with you. What would you have?
Yeah, I think that Rin hasn't done a lot of fighting with like swords because that's not as big a thing in modern Earth, but has done like martial arts training. So I'm thinking probably like Aikido.
Okay.
One of the other disciplines there.
Yeah. So you're able to do that sort of soft form, turning their force against them and move them out of your way. So yeah, I think between the warfare that all of you have, you can get yourself a few moments respite here. Simon, do you also join that tent?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The strength in numbers.
And you will get there. You can see that Brea has a nasty cut to the side of her from the moment where she had to put her attention the other way seems to have cost her. And she does, when everything is all said and done, she makes sure that she's like closest to Morgard. And she will say, how did you get in here? Did you hit the trap as well?
We were in a different trap, Brea, and some people weren't. Rin was more trapped than the rest of us. We cut our way in. and then we were able to contact you via the Trump. So we came from a different trap.
Because I don't even have my trumps with me.
Most of the Trumps don't work. However, we were surprised to see that this one did.
This place is madness. It is the armies of shadows crammed in together and at war for what little there is here. Then all the armies are just different enough to create that tension and that battle here. I tried to follow what we were taught and find a position of strength to gather people, but that did not go as well as I hoped it would. And as she goes, and beyond these towers, at the ends, there's something happening at those. The threads at ends, when you get close, it's hard to see them, but I think that whoever wove this world is, I don't know if they're weaving it into something else or they're just unweaving it.
I'm sorry, I might be mistaken. Is this? Did we see the towers of that whenever we had come in, or is this?
Yeah. The in that cylinder. Yeah, there are
so
seven.
This is the same trap that we went into.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought this was a different place.
No. She was on the battlefield out in amongst the field of traps that Joanna saw.
Oh, okay, I see.
Field of towers, rather.
Yeah.
It's layers of the same world. It's all a quilt. It's all this messed up thing, and that actually makes total sense now. Why, in a world so crazy and chaotic and mad, you couldn't go to any place exact. You'd have to go based off of someone else's descriptions.
I don't know what you're talking about, Simon, but we've got to cut our way through to someplace. I don't know where.
Okay, but can't you just like walk to the center of it? That's what you guys do, right? Like I don't know it, but like that's what the pattern's all about, is you find the center. Even this place has to have a center to it.
So Morgard turns to Ren and says, effectively shadows are reflections of Amber, the true place. And whoever has done this has rendered the shadows into thread and woven them into a tapestry, and then overlaid it over an existing shadow so that whenever one of us steps into it, it envelops them and takes them to this place. So there is no center here. It is torn asunder almost like a net.
Maybe you're not looking for the center in the right place. Because if every shadow, I think, has a pattern in it, then the patterns of the worlds woven together here are still here. You can't get rid of them.
You don't need to get rid of them. You just need to travel between them. We just have to find the most stable tower. And hypothetically, the most stable tower then would be the center at which all the other towers, unstable as they are, would all expand out from those. And we only got here because we were already trapped here. That's what I'm trying to say. The Trumps, whoever created these, could travel between the traps they created and the real shadow worlds and Amber and all of that. But they can only do it based off of a description, A, because they don't know what we are, who we are, what we actually look like, and B, because even if they 100% knew us by recognition, that all gets messed up here. We're going off of the vision of some kind of madman.
Are you suggesting that the way the madman left was by contacting us via Trump,
That's exactly what I'm suggesting.
then we need to be able to contact him via Trump.
Well, and that's my thought, is that we can use the Trumps that we already have to get to some of the others, and maybe by trial and error, find a way to travel to the most stable center.
Or we could try to mimic the chaotic style. There's a reason why Catherine isn't in the deck of sketches. If we could get our Trump artist here to draw chaotically Catherine, then maybe we can contact or at least spy on the fake Catherine.
But how do we know if the fake Catherine, she might have changed shape to anything by now?
Oh, true. But there's also a clue that Catherine's Trump didn't exist in the decks that we have. There must be a reason for that.
There is.
I think that we will see at that moment probably that barrier, the tent go down, and we will see these forces come rushing in. This is sort of a montage moment, so I can get you to describe when these forces rush in. There are 6 of you Amberites here. One is wounded, one is fighting defensively, but then there's the other 4 of you. So Joanna, what do we see on screen? They're these warriors. They have these sharp blades, these gun blades, these lacquered armor. They're great masses of them. They seem to be just going, you don't look like us. That's who we're fighting. So what do we see? What is your fighting look like, and how do you overcome the odds here?
I think what it looks like is that Joanna, her third eye opens on her forehead, and then these Logris tentacles come out of it, and they're just reaching out and grabbing the nearest weapons that they can.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a gun blade snaps into her hand, and then she shoots a guy, and then a sword snaps into her hand and she throws that, and she's just like getting more and more weapons, and as soon as it's used she just tosses it away and she gets another one.
Okay. And we see you start to work through, you find your segment of the field, and the things, they don't see the shadows. So for them, it's just these blades are appearing in your hand, and you are firing them and throwing them, and you're beginning to work your way through that. But there's just the mass of these things. Rin, you're the next best at warfare. What is it that you're doing to even the odds? Are you fighting them? Are you doing something else? What do we see?
Yeah, I think Rin's doing some fighting, but it's more of the like soft style of just like people are coming in and then they're like coming out, and it's just kind of like this revolving door of like people charge in and no one can get a clear shot, and then they're disarmed, and then they're like hit on the head and thrown out, and that people are constantly bumping into each other, and it's just like very smooth and seemingly well trained.
And you are skilled and disciplined at this. There probably is a moment when you do see Bray kind of step up, and she puts a blade in someone that you've thrown, and she will say, "You need to keep them down. You've lived too long in a soft place." What do you say?
I guess Rin just kind of like narrows her eyes at Bray and just like, they're too small anyway. You've never been a threat.
Nice. Simon, you see that Joanna is going to town. Blades It almost looks like the Knights of the Round from Final Fantasy VII, with all these blades out and flying and going around and taking people down. And you see Rin, who you've probably never seen her fight, and she's amazing. I mean, because she's fighting that sort of just trying to get them out of the way, that sort of skilled defensive. She is a blur doing that. What do we see you doing, Simon?
So I think that with Simon, there's a moment where he cracks his knuckles and cracks his neck, and everything just kind of cracks all at once, and then he just goes, and then just like just grabs a sword from one guy and literally like forces it out of his hand, and then just starts going to town, one hand with a sword and like his left hand just like going at it full body strength, and like he'll clothesline one man and then like with the next like just push him out of the way with his sword hand. Like he's almost using the hilt as much as the blade to just use sheer blunt force, because he knows full well that like although he can very much handle himself in warfare more than the typical Amberite, he is very much outclassed by these two, and just chooses to focus entirely on like, I can outdo this in strength and just knock them out of my way. And he just kind of goes at this for as long as he deems necessary. And like, it's clear that like the longer he goes at it, the more he starts to have this wild look in his eye that he's just like, he's enjoying this maybe a little bit too much.
Okay. And they've done some significant effect here, moving people away, taking them down, the Simon strength throwing people, whereas Rin can toss them carefully, skillfully move them. Simon's is more a throw across the field. Morgard, you maybe not to their level, but you are still a better fighter one-on-one than any of these people. So what do we see you doing?
So I think we see this mass, and as the fighting starts, Morgard gets this panicked look in his eye, like, oh, this is not okay. I am not up for this. Not only am I the weakest of these here, but I have a broken arm, and I'm not going to, this isn't going to be good. So I think what we see is like a montage of like these badass fighters kind of spread out. And I think Morgard reaches into the pocket of one of the, fallen slain soldiers and pulls out a big gun and just starts blasting away. Like it's the equivalent of like a 44 or something.
Okay.
And just and, but he's got this wide-eyed look like, there's too many of them. And at some point, one overruns him and he kind of falls back. And Artax kind of leaps through and savages that one while he gets back up to one knee and starts shooting. But he tries to figure out where the center of all the rest of them are and stay there. So,
and I imagine that Artax is almost like a shepherd around you, kind of pushing you along, shaping the direction of the fight as you go along. Right. And after a good, exhausting 10-15 minutes of fighting, as you kind of push your way along, I think, Morgard, you will find yourself seriously taxed. The others, it is exhausting, but they can keep themselves up, and you will find yourself with some room to breathe here at the base of one of these towers. This one differs from the other towers that you've seen. The other towers of Nosley, the like more greenish stone. You can see that it's the pattern work here is, rather than carven, it's that sort of Roman shattered bits of stone and colored glass to form the patterns on their mosaics. Took me a while, but I found the word. But beautiful mosaics around that are old and broken in some places. And again, these towers are huge. They're settlement sized, huge. And you will find a space at the base of one and some buildings there that you can secure and kind of lock down, and the fighting will shift away from where the four of you are. What do you want to do next?
I am going to slam Simon against the wall, and I'm going to point to Catherine, and I'm going to say, why is there no Trump? Why was there no Trump for Catherine?
I am going to firmly brush away Joanna's hand, and I say, I was about to tell you, it'll be a lot easier if I'm not backed up against a wall.
Fine, I'll step away.
Okay.
Catherine looks at you in a slight panic, but certainly holds her ground.
Okay. I'm trying to okay. Whoever we're after has the ability to take the form of at least some of the elders of Amber, which means that they can be very, very convincing. I say that also as a remark to myself of I was tricked. I was so completely tricked with being able to tell a convincing story and gather as much information as possible and lead other people in different directions and get what they need out of them. In this particular instance, whoever we're dealing with had to get the information on what we looked like, who we were, all of that from someone. And I wish that there was a better explanation as to who that is. But considering that I've been told the same story twice, it does seem to map out that whether of her own, what
Catherine says, look, I met someone and they knew enough about Amber and other things to convince me that they were King Eric, who was supposed to be dead. But they knew things and they had skills and powers that seemed legitimate to me. And they wanted someone to help them return and gain power in Amber, and they promised me a great deal. And they asked about the other youth, and I told them.
The other Catherine, the first Catherine that we encountered, had originally asked me not to say anything, though I pressed for information. And when I got the truth, or what I believe to be the truth, I let it slide simply on the basis that I know, at the very least, how the two of you feel towards Catherine, and I didn't want to place any ideas in our heads too early.
Look, I'm just as much a victim here as you are, because I was betrayed, and I was caught up in this, and recriminations now aren't going to benefit anyone. We should
slap her.
And as that happens, I say, we should have left you in the cave in your bag.
And I think you'll do it. You've got the warfare is what gets it. I mean, she's stronger than you are, but it is that hit that sent her sprawling down. You hear Morgard say that. Rin, what do you say?
I think so. While this has been happening, Rin has been like kind of thinking about it a little bit, but their attention's been mostly focused on something else, which is that. So they hold the deck of cards that have actually been working, the mad deck, as I have called it, and that they've been going through the pictures very closely and studying them and memorizing them so they can use those cards without the cards. And as like attention goes to Rin looks up at everyone and says, "I don't know what's going on, but I don't trust any of you." And because of that, they rip the mad deck in half.
Yeah, you can tear that in half. I will tell you something before you go to tear it, though, because you have those skills and because you are looking at those cards. You will get a response from amongst those other cards from Tobias and Sybil. And just for the briefest moment before it is shut down, from Bastian.
Very good.
And then you will tear that in half. Catherine goes to get back up, puts herself in that stance where she doesn't want to get slapped again. I have no desire to fight you, Joanna, but I will if I have to.
I shrug and I say, I suppose you were deceived, so I've decided not to kill you for now.
I think I turn to Bray and I say, since there's honesty coming and we have a little bit of a breath, I have some bad news. And I think I opened the shadow pocket and let the bag with Bastian fall out. And I say, we tried to save him, but he was already gone.
She looks at you like suspiciously, like she clearly reads the room, like she goes around trying to assess whether you're being truthful or whether you murdered him. And she will go over to him and she will say, how did he die?
We have no idea. Whenever we came through, we were not pulled through like others were. And we found him hanging in this bag along with the two others. And there were empty bags, I believe, probably for us. And whenever we opened the bag, he was already dead. We can take him back to Mother.
Oh,
and I think that's whenever I kind of close up the bag and I put it back.
And and she gets serious. Like her, she's got that boiling anger that you've seen on your mother's face before. And she turns to walk up behind Joanna, and she says, Catherine, if you've had anything to do with this, Joanna's hand will not be the one that kills you alone.
And I think I pulled this out. I don't know that Catherine or Rin knew what happened in the first bag.
Catherine looks shocked.
Yeah.
And Catherine goes to step just slightly closer to Simon. Simon, when she steps closer to you, what do?
I'm not looking at her. I'm actually looking directly at Rin, and the entire time everything else has been going on since the ripping of the cards, I have been silently seething and just under my breath, but clear enough that everyone can hear. Please, for the love of all that may or may not be holy in Amber, tell me you did not just rip both decks.
And you were only given one deck, Rin.
Yeah, sadly.
Who has the other one?
I think I've got it because
Yep.
Morgard gave his deck.
Okay.
So maybe Rin wasn't even aware that there was another deck.
I don't think so.
Okay. Great. And I think
Catherine's like glaring at Rin now because now there's somebody else who's the center of people being angry. So she's like giving you the big glare, like, yeah.
Yeah, no, but like I hold out just like the slightest hand, not like up or anything, but just to my side to Catherine, going, now, of all times, is not the time for us to be fighting each other. If we are to make it out alive of any of this, I don't care about trust. Trust means nothing when it actually comes to survival. If I trusted any of you as far as I could throw you, and you all know how far I can throw you.
Brea goes, wait, so you trust us a lot?
I said, if I trusted you as far as I could throw you. I'm just going to say this once. With this world being the way that it is, we're spending too much time not trusting each other instead of not trusting what we see. There's entirely the possibility that that was not Bastion. There's entirely the possibility that all of our siblings could very much be alive. There's entirely the possibility that this Catherine, unbeknownst to all of us, is the real leader behind all of this. I don't know. What I do know is that if you rip another card, I am going to find out firsthand, literally, what it feels like to go through your skull.
Oof. Rin, how do you react to that?
Rin just stares back daggers. But for all your talk of trust, I showed up here, I didn't know anything. You keep telling me that these things are happening, telling me that we're a group here. Getting rid of those cards, I can use them. Do you know that? I can still use them. But you need me to do it. That's the way you acquire trust. Through power.
See Catherine give a nod, like, okay.
Joanna, can I see Tobias's card? I just want to check on him.
All right, I'm going to walk over to Simon, pointedly staying out of reach of Rin, and take out the other Tobias card from the Madness deck and pass it to Simon.
Simon hands you that card.
Okay. I'm going to check on Tobias. And I don't care what any of you think about me or anyone I care about right now. I care about getting out of here. I don't need you to trust me. I don't need to know why you look so much older than the last time I saw you. I don't need anyone else here to have any bright and bold ideas of how to keep themselves relevant in this group. I'm not leaving anyone behind unless they make a point as to why they should be. And I'm going to stare at the card with daggers in my eyes and try to find Tobias.
And I think you and Rin kind of feel that contact because you have the connection, you have the skill to that, and you will feel it open, and you can hear kind of the wind howling, and you will hear, Simon?
Where are you?
I don't know. I'm atop this tower, and I'm in some kind of mad loom weaving place. I don't know. Can you bring me through?
Oh,
you're in a bad place too, huh?
Since when is there a good place?
There's no war around me, but I don't know what I'm looking at.
Okay. Try and take my hand and I'll try and reach through and pull him through. But as I do, I will make the briefest eye contact with Rin and go try and keep the connection open. If I'm able to pull him through, we need to get through the other side as well.
Rin?
Let me see why.
Well, let me describe what you see when he pulls him through, and you can decide how you want to do that.
Sure.
You will see this figure, young, very young, and I mean he's late teens, if that, and you can see him kind of stand up, and he reaches out his hand. He looks ill-prepared to travel, but you can see that he is standing atop one of these towers, and it's clearly one that's far away from where you are now at the furthest end, because you can see behind it there's something happening to the air, to the very sky and air at the end of it, and it's like it's shifting and turning, and it's very hard to see through the card what's going on there, but when Simon reaches out his hand, Tobias takes it quickly and comes through, and it's cold. Like you can feel that he brings a good chunk of cold air with him when he comes through. Do you hold it, Rin?
And I think
you memorize it. Let me get that question answered. And
Yeah, I definitely want to keep track of that place.
Okay, all right. Morgard?
Oh, I just wanted to say, whenever Simon asked Rin to hold it, and it was open, I think Morgard steps forward and says, "This looks like a weaving point where the tapestry is being formed or torn apart. It's important.
And I think in that moment, when I hear Morgard say that, I make a split-second decision and leap through.
Okay. Simon steps through that card portal. Now is the question, Rin. Do you keep that portal open or do you let it close?
I don't think that I keep it open because I have a card on Simon and
Okay.
I have a card on Tobias, so I don't need to
Okay.
keep that exact one open right now.
All right.
Just to clarify, I think the intent I was trying to go for is that we might switch places, but if I go through, am I not pulling Tobias through?
It's up to you whether you want to take Tobias or not.
I think I want to switch places with
Yeah,
Tobias.
absolutely.
So Tobias is safe, but I'm going to end up where he was.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's deal with you first, Simon, and then let's come back to the rest. Does that seem
Sure.
fair? The wind is howling. It is freezing cold here. And you can see that you seem to be closer to the end of that cylinder. And sort of the furthest point along. There are no armies down below because they fled away from this. The point at which it looks like the world is being rewoven into something else. Great threads of shadow being taken, and there's almost this sort of multidimensional loom that seems to be shaping it, taking those threads, and those threads are vanishing into somewhere else, and it is moving slowly forward. Like as it does this, as it does that reweaving, that it is eating the world up.
Okay.
So Joanna, I haven't heard from you for a little bit.
I would like to go over to Morgard and say, look, the only two people, well, you're the only person that I've been with the whole time since all this began. Even Simon, he went away, then he came back. We don't even know if he is who he says he is. But did you say earlier that you have a power word that can restore people to their true form?
I have something that I have a spell, a word, a power that I have learned that can restore things to their true form.
Do you think this could possibly be do you think there's any way that a very powerful shapeshifter could overcome this power word?
One of the first things you learn is that you will never know everything. And it is unwise to believe that you know everything about a subject. So it's very possible that these shapeshifters, what we're talking about here is someone who can weave shadow in a way that no one's ever considered, and also sketch out trumps from a description that are usable, and also shapeshift into believable versions of Amberites. I have no doubt that they would be able to come over such power words as this.
So it's not much use to us, really.
It's a step, but not against this, I don't think.
Rin, what are you doing now?
I think Rin is kind of like that they've shelved the Mad deck and that they're shuffling their own deck and kind of like going through it and trying and mostly experiencing the cold. And I think that they come back to the tower card that they got that kind of started all of this on their desk, which I assume is drawn in the style of the Mad deck.
Yeah, now that you've seen the others, you recognize the same hand at work.
Yeah, and I want to kind of like project scout that location and see if I can actually get through to where the card is shown, as opposed to the, now that I know the trap is there, going around the trap and to the actual place.
I think what you'll be able to get is you can feel all the towers that are in here, like they're all echoes of that, and I think you can sense each of those towers, all 8 of them, which is one more than you've seen.
Okay.
What do you want to do?
Yeah, I want to see if I can find, like, because they're all kind of layered on top, it almost seems as if this card is a shifting location, or the location is split, and I want to try to like narrow in, like focus my signal to the tower that I haven't seen.
Okay. And yeah, you will reach out your consciousness and you can see a tower, and it is clearly hidden from sight, but it is present here in this trap world, in this trap weave. You could call it up if you wanted. You could go there.
I think I'll see what their conversation is happening, and then I'll decide.
Morgard?
And
then I'll come back to Simon.
Yeah. So I think I tell, I think I theorize with Joanna. Between the Logris and the pattern and the trumps, maybe a combination of them can get us out. I would have to assume that someone who built such a trap for mature elder Amberites would foresee certain things. We have to be able to think of something that they wouldn't have, some advantage we have that they wouldn't have been able to consider. Can you think of any such thing, Joanna?
I don't know. All I can think of is, like you say, perhaps if we combine my Logris with your pattern mastery, but maybe we need to get to this place of unweaving where Simon went to.
And that'll give us a good cut to Simon. Simon, you're standing on that. You can feel that world, like it is being remade, destroyed, and you don't know what will happen if it comes to you.
Step closer to the loom.
Okay. And imagine you're at the top of a tower, and it is probably, a mile away at this point, that end of it.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to do just a cursory search of the tower, just try and get a sense of if there's any way down.
Oh yeah, it is like the other towers of Nosley that you've seen. It is massive. It is a tower that people had a city in, but it is emptied. People have fled from here. They've taken their goods. They've run. They've fled back. That is the war that is going on in the middle. Is the people closest to this end? Their armies and their people trying to get somewhere else.
Yeah. I want to try being this close to the loom. I want to try pulling out my Trump Benedict and seeing if I can push through the whole weave of it and try and contact him.
What do you do differently?
I think when I look at my image of Benedict, as drawn, I squint as I look at it to blur my own vision of it and try and remember him as if I were describing him to someone else and not as he is.
Interesting. I think you will get that briefest of contact, like a staggered, stuttered shot as you see him kind of looking up, like he's surprised that anyone could reach through to where he is, and it's just a moment that you can see him in chains.
And I think the words were forming in my mouth, find Catherine, but I see that. And, obviously my thought is she found him or whoever did. And I think that I will try to, rather than look closer, I will actually try and shut my eyes as tight as possible and reach out my hand.
And I don't think that will work.
That's okay.
I think you will reach out, but the weave changes, and when it changes again, when it reconfigures as the next thing comes, it will cut that off.
So I think my hand reaches out and obviously gets nothing. And I think, I think that there's just a moment where I think Simon looks around the room and just goes, this close to your own creation, you wouldn't just happen to be here, would you?
I cut on the echoing sound of that as you call out. Let's come back to Rin, Morgard, and Joanna.
So I think that, if you don't mind,
sure.
I think at some point during this discussion, I think Morgard's head kind of snaps up and looks at Rin. And he stands up and he walks over and he says, Rin, you trust your trump deck, right?
Yes.
And you have trumps of us.
I have the mad trumps.
And
I don't know if I trust those. I didn't make them.
Okay.
But you've remade them in your mind.
Yes.
I was just going to say, they can only contact the people that were drawn, right? Would it be possible to forge a trump to contact someone else instead of the original recipient?
What do you mean? So that someone could make... I mean, when you make a trump, you make it with someone in mind. And then it is a connection to that person or that place.
And my understanding is that if you try to contact us, you can only reach us. You couldn't reach someone who was pretending to be us. Is that correct?
That's correct. It is possible to block a connection or to strengthen a connection or to jam a connection, but it's not possible to fake a connection.
But then if you tried to connect us through your trumps, you would know who to trust and who not to. correct?
No.
You would know.
I would know that you are who you claim to be.
That's exactly right.
That doesn't mean I can trust you.
Certainly, but that is one step. You know that all of us are who we claim to be.
That is fair. The other side of it is that these trumps that I have, I can only contact whoever the creator intended them to contact.
Tobias says, can we get my brother back now, please?
I
Yes.
agree. I think we should try to link up with Simon, and I can take everyone there right now. Rin, to be honest, I'm a bit sick of all this. I don't trust you this, I don't trust you that. You can come with us if you want. If you don't want, I don't really care. I liked you better when you were younger.
Catherine's like, I would like Rin to come with us just because she seems to know what's going on with the Trumps.
Fine, we can go.
So you're going to use the shadow tendrils to pull people to where Simon is? Is that your intent, Joanna?
Yeah, I think I'm going to say, look, this is the quickest way. It might not be the most comfortable, so just hold on. And I'm going to have like shadow tendril coming out of my third eye, but I'm also going to have literal tendrils coming out of my body that just like wrap around each person. And then I'm gonna use my Logris to grab onto Simon and pull us all through to where Simon is.
Okay. And Simon, you'll feel that tugging of that. And, this is just as those words are kind of echoing away. And then you'll feel that shadowy force that is chaos pull the group together again. And you are all atop that tower.
Well, so I think that in like the moment of transition, as everyone is being pulled by the tentacles, if that would be the time that Wim would decide to go check out the 8th tower instead.
And I think you will vanish from their sight. And Simon, Joanna, Morgard, you will look around. Brea is with you. Catherine is with you. Rin is not with you.
Tobias is with you.
Yes.
Okay.
And that is what we're going to take up next week. That is where we're going to stop for tonight. We will take up next week with that split. And we will get to the resolution of this. Does that seem fair?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I want to thank everybody. Again, this is a game that has a certain amount of trust and PvP stuff. I appreciate people leaning into that without getting, because this can always be tense making. So I just want to make sure we'll check in at the beginning of next session, see how everybody's feeling about that. And if we want to change the tone or approach or anything like that, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and comfortable with the play. If that sounds okay.
Sure.
All right. And we're going to stop there, and that should give Will a chance to get to his thing. And I will see everybody next week. I'm going to stop the recording right now.